Okay, third grade. So we are going to be doing something new in math this week. We're going to be moving away from measurement a little bit, but we are going to start talking about a little bit more about our numbers. And we're going to be doing some rounding this week. And so what Mrs. Gillis is going to do this week is show you a lot of different ways that you can round. And then we're going to practice rounding a bunch of different numbers. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about our number lines. And we worked a lot with number lines when we were talking about measuring time. And we know that all number lines have an endpoint. That is where it begins and where it ends. And our number lines that we use with telling time, our endpoints were 0 and 60. Well, our endpoints now are going to be a little bit different given the numbers that we're working with. So let's take a look at this number line right here. So if you look carefully, I've got the endpoints of 10 and 20. My question is, we need to start to talk a little bit about halfway, okay? Halfway just means what is the midpoint between two numbers, okay? So if we talk about the numbers 10 and 20, halfway or the midpoint between these two numbers would be 15, okay? So I'm going to put that halfway in the middle, and I'm going to write 15. Now, some of you might have been saying, but Mrs. Gillis, this number line looked a little bit different than our number lines when we were telling time. And they do. Our number lines that we're going to be using while we round are going to be vertical instead of horizontal. But they're still going to have the same thing. They're still going to have an endpoint. They're still going to have intervals. And they're still going to have our marks. So let's take a look at this one. So our endpoints are 30 and 40. So what is halfway between 30 or 40? That point that is directly between two numbers. Well, I know between the two are going to be my 5s. And are you starting to see a trend? Halfway between 30 and 40 is going to be 35. Let's look at another example. One more halfway example. What if we had 40 and 50? What's the halfway point between 40 and 50? If you said 55, you were correct. Are you noticing that all of our halfway points ended in a 5? That's going to be really good information to store away for a little bit later when we start talking about actually rounding our numbers. So let's say that I had a beaker of water that was filled with 73 milliliters of water. Okay? So I'm going to start with my vertical number line, and I am going to label my two endpoints. Now, my bottom endpoint is going to be the number that I'm going to start with. My top endpoint is the number I am not going to go past. So let's think about the number 73. How many tens are in 73? 7 tens are in 73. So I'm going to write 70, which equals 7 tens. Okay, in 73, there are 7 tens. Now, what is 1 more than 7 tens? 1 more than 7 tens. 1 more than 7 is 8. So 1 more than 7 tens is going to be 8 tens. 8 tens is 80. So that's going to be my top number. So now I have my two endpoints. I have my 70 and my 80, okay? Let's think back. What's halfway between 70 and 80? Remember from earlier, all of our halfway points ended in a 5. So if we're starting at 70, we're not going past 80. It's going to be 75, which we know is 7 tens and 5 ones. So if we think back to what Mrs. Gillen said earlier, so if we think about our number that we were talking about the number 73. So my next point is going to be putting 73 on our number line. So when I get close to where you think 73 should be on here, I want you to start to yell out stop. Now I won't be able to hear you, but that way you can think. So if I'm looking 70, that's about 71, 72, 73, I'm going to stop right here, okay? And I'm going to label that with 73, which we know another way to think about 73 is 7 tens and 3 ones. So now that we know where 73 is, we can start to talk about rounding that number. I have said this a lot this morning, but the question is, what does it mean to round? So when I say that we're going to round, what that means is we're going to estimate a number to the nearest 10 or 100 using place value. So if you look, I'm going to take a number, say 47, and I'm going to take it and either make it 40 or 50, depending on what it's closest to. I'm going to round it to the nearest 10. So let's go back to our example we had on our vertical number line here. I have 73. Look at 73. Is 73 more than halfway? Or is it less than halfway between 80 and 70? So there's my 2 endpoints, 70 and 80. Is 73 more than halfway to 80? Or is it less than halfway to 80? If you said that it is less than halfway between 70 and 80, you are correct because I know 3 is less than 5, and 5 is my halfway point, okay? So I would round 73 down to 70. Anything that's less than that halfway point is going to be rounded down. Anything that comes above that half point is going to be rounded up. Now let's think about the number 61, okay? And let's make our number line for 61. So we're going to start by labeling our endpoints. 61. In 61, there are 6 tens, which is 60. I asked myself, what is one more 10 than 6 tens? 1 more than 6 is 7. So 7 tens or 70. Now I have my 2 endpoints, 60 and 70, and I can label the halfway points. Halfway between 60 and 70, I know is going to end in 5 because we've talked about that all on this whole video. So 65 is my halfway point. The number we were talking about rounding was the number 61. So I'm going to place 61 on my number line. So there's 60. Next up would be 61. So if I look at that number 61, is it more than halfway where I'm going to go up? Or is it less than halfway where I'm going to go down? It is less than halfway. 1 is less than 5. So I'm going to round that number down to 60. 61 would round to 60. What if we had the number 38? So we would start by labeling our endpoints. In 38, there are 3 tens or 30. What is 1 more 10 than 3 tens? 1 more than 3 is 4, so 4 tens. And we know from multiplication that 4 tens is 40. And now I can label my halfway point. So halfway between 30 and 40, we know ends in 5. It is 35. And now I'm ready to place my number on the number line. Remember, anything that's above halfway rounds up to 40. Anything that's below halfway or less than halfway goes down to 30. So my number was 38. Let's see where we would place that on. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. So if I look at my number line, 38, is it more than halfway or is it less than halfway? It is more than halfway to 40. It is more than halfway between 30 and 40, so it's going to round up to 40. Now, so far, let's take a look at a number that might be a little bit tricky. Let's think about the number 25. So 25, in that number, there are 2 tens. And I asked myself, what's 1 more 10 than 2 tens? What's 1 more than 2? 3. So 3 tens. And I know that 3 tens equals 30. So I'm thinking about going between 20 and 30. What is halfway between 20 and 30? 25. And then let's talk about a number. Let's round, let's say 25. So let's place 25 on my number line, remembering that anything more than halfway rounds up, anything less than halfway goes down. So if my number is 25, where would it go on my number line? If you said right here, directly in the middle at 25, you would be correct. So what do we do when a number is exactly halfway? Anytime a number is exactly halfway like this, because it's not more than halfway and it's not less, it's exactly halfway, we always round up, okay? Anytime a number is exactly halfway, we always round up. So 25 will round up to 30. Are you starting to notice something? That when a number ends in 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we go down, we round down. And when a number ends in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we round up. If you notice that, you would be correct. These numbers are all less than halfway. These numbers are all exactly or more than halfway. So when you round down, down you go, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. When you round up, up, it's nice like 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So just keep that in mind. We've got some pages for you to practice, and then there's an assignment for you to do, and we're going to be doing lots more rounding this week.